That's your Gap hoodie, is that right?
Yeah,
That's you, who you're shooting at?
no.
Alright, now back it up again.
That was Cornelius Smith, one of the men charged in Young Dolph's murder, straight up admitting it in court. And it didn't stop there. He also threw out serious accusations involving Yo Gotti and his brother. If his testimony holds up, this could be the moment that finally pulls Yo Gotti directly into the case. Let's get into it. The Memphis feud that turned deadly. The streets have been buzzing with allegations connecting Yo Gotti and his big bro Anthony Big Jook Mims to Young Dolph's murder, leaving the culture shook and investigators on a mission to expose how deep this conspiracy really goes. Young Dolph, government name Adolph Thornton Jr., was hit up on November 17, 2021 at Makeda's Homemade Butter Cookies in Memphis, Tennessee. The beloved trap star had just pulled up to cop some cookies for his moms when shooters let off, cutting short the life of one of Memphis's most successful independent hustlers. The moment the news dropped, the streets started pointing fingers at Dolph's long-standing ops, Yo Gotti, and his collective music group camp. To really understand how everything popped off, we gotta rewind to 2014 when the tension first started brewing. Young Dolph was coming up in the Memphis rap game, gaining traction with his authentic street narratives and paper-chasing mentality. Yo Gotti, already established with his CMG empire, peeped game and tried to sign Dolph to his roster. This seemingly straightforward business move would end up being the spark that lit the whole block up. In a Vlad TV interview back in 2014, Dolph spilled the tea on his first meeting with Gotti, saying he wasn't feeling how Gotti approached him. According to Dolph, Gotti was out here trash-talking his own CMG artists, Zedzilla and Starlito, trying to gas Dolph up. Dolph recalled, "This my first time meeting you. You gonna really throw your artists up under the bus to try and persuade me in? That's like a red alert the first time I met him. I can't respect that." This lack of loyalty was a major red flag for Dolph, who later elaborated on The Breakfast Club in 2017 that Gotti's own manager had warned him not to sign with CMG, validating his decision to stay in his own lane. Dolph turning down the CMG deal wasn't just saying nah to a contract. It was a straight-up declaration of independence in an industry where linking with established labels was the wave. Instead, Dolph built his own paper route empire label from the ground up, putting himself in direct competition with Gotti's CMG in the Memphis market. This boss move reportedly had Gotti in his feelings, as he was used to running things in Memphis, marking the beginning of their tension. The low-key beef went public in February 2016 when Dolph took to Twitter with the message, "Bra went from being my Hash 1 fan and wanting to sign me to being my biggest hater Hash Facts." This social media jab confirmed that their private disagreement had officially turned into public smoke. Adding fuel to the fire, Dolph named his debut album King of Memphis in 2016, a title that Gotti had been claiming for years. This blatant disrespect escalated the rivalry, setting the stage for a series of increasingly hostile exchanges that would make the streets take notice. While Yo Gotti initially kept it cool in response to these provocations, his CMG soldier Black Youngsta jumped in the front line of the brewing beef. In March 2016, Black Youngsta dropped a diss track called Shake Some, directly coming at Dolph and questioning his Memphis credentials, spitting bars like, "How the you the king of Memphis? You ain't from the city, from Chicago." Youngsta then upped the ante by pulling up to Dolph's South Memphis hood with a squad of strapped-up goons, filming a disrespectful video that had the whole city on edge. The situation went from tense to potentially deadly in February 2017, when Dolph released the savage diss track Play With Yo, taking direct shots at Gotti. The track included some wild personal attacks, including claims that Dolph had smashed Gotti's baby mama and referring to him as Ho Gotti. To twist the knife, the track's cover art featured a screenshot of missed calls from a contact labeled Ho Gotti Baby Moma, taking the disrespect to another level. The song went gold, further cementing Dolph's status as an independent force to be reckoned with. Just weeks after dropping Play With Yo, the beef took a violent turn. On February 25, 2017, while Dolph was in Charlotte, North Carolina for the CIAA basketball tournament, his bulletproof whip got lit up with over 100 rounds. Miraculously, Dolph walked away without a scratch, crediting the vehicle's bulletproof panels for saving his life. In a straight gangsta move, he performed at a scheduled concert that same night, making sure to flex by performing Play With Yo to let everyone know he wasn't fazed. The fallout from the Charlotte shooting brought new drama to the Dolph Gotti situation. Black Youngsta caught a case in connection with the shooting, as the van used in the hit was allegedly rented in his name. Youngsta turned himself in on May 16, 2017, but maintained his innocence, claiming somebody stole the whip. The charges against him were eventually dropped in 2019, but the incident further connected Gotti's CMG camp to the escalating beef, if only by association. Dolph, always on his hustle, flipped the Charlotte shooting into a money move move by dropping his second album, Bulletproof, in April 2017, which debuted at number 36 on the Billboard chart. The album's lead track, 100 Shots, directly referenced the shooting, turning the attempt on his life into content that further built his brand as an untouchable, independent force in the game. The violence continued in September 2017, when Dolph caught 3 bullets outside the Lowe's Hollywood Hotel in Los Angeles, leaving him hospitalized in critical condition. By coincidence or not, Gotti was reportedly staying at the same hotel when the shooting went down. Corey McClendon, a Memphis associate of Gotti, got booked on attempted murder charges, but was later released. Initial whispers suggested that Gotti might be a person of interest, but the LAPD quickly shut those rumors down. As the public narrative around the beef intensified, both rappers addressed the situation in interviews, often downplaying the beef or framing it as a misunderstanding. In October 2017, Gotti hit up the Breakfast Club, denying any real issues with Dolph. He claimed they had never argued or had any physical altercations, stating, "I'm the biggest rapper from Memphis. I help a lot of rappers from Memphis. I don't know, I can't really think about what it is." Gotti suggested that Dolph was using the beef as a marketing ploy to boost his bag, saying, "I really don't think homie got no issue. I just think it's marketing." Gotti even flexed that he had mentored Dolph early in his career, pulling up a 2012 text message where he offered advice and invited Dolph to his shows. For years, the beef between young Dolph and Yo Gotti simmered through diss tracks, interviews, and occasional outbursts of violence, with neither side willing to fall back. But on November 17, 2021, the conflict would reach its tragic climax, forever changing the landscape of Memphis hip-hop and raising questions that continue to echo through the music industry and the criminal justice system today. The murder investigation and trial revelations. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting and murder of young Dolph at Makeda's Homemade Butter Cookies in Memphis, Memphis police moved quick, shutting down Yo Gotti's restaurant Priv amid concerns about potential getback. Though early reports that the restaurant had caught strays were quickly debunked, the preventative action highlighted how authorities viewed the long-standing Dolph Gotti beef as a potential powder keg for more violence. The investigation into Dolph's murder moved methodically, with the Boys in Blue identifying and pursuing several suspects in the months following the hit. By January 2022, authorities had booked Justin Johnson, aka Straight Drop, and Cornelia Smith, slapping them both with first-degree murder charges. A third suspect, Hernandez Govan, was later charged as the alleged mastermind who put the hit in motion. For nearly 3 years, as the legal process dragged on, questions lingered about the real motivations behind Dolph's murder and whether it tied back to his beef with Yo Gotti's camp. While Twitter detectives and hip-hop forums were full of theories, solid evidence remained scarce until September 2024, when Justin Johnson's trial brought some explosive revelations that put the Dolph Gotti rivalry back in the spotlight. The trial, which kicked off on September 23, 2024, featured some jaw-dropping opening statements from Shelby County Deputy District Attorney Paul Hagerman, who alleged that Anthony Big Jook Mims, Yo Gotti's older brother and a key player in CMG, had put a $100,000 bag on young Dolph's head. This bombshell was the first official suggestion that CMG was directly involved in Dolph's murder, connecting the hit to the years-long tension between the rival labels. The prosecution's case against Justin Johnson got a major boost from testimony provided by his co-defendant, Cornelia Smith, who had already pleaded guilty and agreed to cooperate. Smith's testimony gave a detailed play-by-play of the alleged conspiracy, claiming that Big Jook offered him and Johnson $40,000 each to carry out the hit, with the added incentive of signing them to CMG afterward. This testimony directly connected Dolph's murder to the industry beef that had defined his relationship with Yo Gotti's camp. According to Smith, the planning for the hit involved multiple players, with Hernandez Govan serving as the middleman between Big Jook and Triggerman. Smith testified that Govan arranged for Johnson to meet Big Jook in Atlanta, where the deal was allegedly set up. This meeting, if it went down as described, would be a crucial link in establishing a conspiracy between CMG leadership and Dolph's killers. In one of the most wild details from the testimony, Smith claimed that after carrying out the hit, he and Johnson FaceTimed Big Jook, with Johnson spelling out Dolph's name in sign language to confirm the job was done. This detail, suggesting they used a prearranged communication method to avoid creating digital evidence, painted a picture of a calculated hit rather than a spontaneous act of violence. Smith's testimony didn't stop at Dolph's murder, alleging that Big Jook had put prices on other Paper Route Empire artists' heads as well, including Key Glock, Paper Route Woo, Big Moochie Grape, and Snoop bands, according to leaked court documents reported by Hot New Hip Hop. These additional allegations suggested a broader campaign against Dolph's whole camp, though they remain unproven in court. The prosecution's narrative got even more complex with Smith's claim that he only received $800 of the promised $40K and that someone from CMG paid for his legal fees after he got booked, suggesting an attempt to keep the alleged conspirators from talking. This detail, if true, would indicate ongoing involvement from CMG figures even after the arrest started, potentially widening the conspiracy beyond just planning and executing the murder. The timing of these allegations added another layer of complexity to the case, as Big Jook himself had been hit up on January 13, 2024, outside a Memphis restaurant. His murder remains unsolved, leading to speculation about potential get-back related to Dolph's case, though no evidence has confirmed this connection. The fact that these allegations surfaced after Jook's death meant that he couldn't respond to or be prosecuted for them, creating a challenge for both the prosecution and defense. While Big Jook was front and center in the trial testimony, Yo Gotti himself wasn't directly charged or named as a defendant in Dolph's murder. However, his position at the head of CMG and his blood ties to Big Jook led to speculation and indirect implications about his potential knowledge or involvement. Smith's testimony suggesting that CMG's resources were used to support the shooters, specifically mentioning the payment of legal fees, fueled speculation about Yo Gotti's awareness, though no evidence directly linked him to the decision-making process. The legal process continued to unfold, with Justin Johnson ultimately getting convicted of first-degree murder, conspiracy, and being a felon in possession of a gun on September 26, 2024. He caught a life sentence, plus an additional 35 years for other charges. Johnson's lawyer, Luke Evans, argued that his client had been manipulated and pushed for a retrial, citing insufficient evidence. But these efforts didn't move the needle. Cornelia Smith, having pleaded guilty and snitched on Johnson, saw his case continue through the system, with a court date pushed to November 2024. Meanwhile, Hernandez Govan, the alleged orchestrator who maintains his innocence, is scheduled for trial in July 2025, which could shed more light on Big Jook's alleged role in the murder. The allegations against Yo Gotti specifically remained largely circumstantial, based on his family ties and business connection to Big Jook and CMG, rather than direct testimony or evidence implicating him in ordering or facilitating the hit. As Justin Johnson's trial wrapped up and attention turned to the remaining legal proceedings, the question of who ultimately bore responsibility for young Dolph's death remained partially answered. The court had established Johnson's guilt as one of the shooters, but the broader conspiracy, particularly the alleged involvement of Big Jook and potentially other CMG figures, remained to be fully adjudicated. The possibility of Yo Gotti's indictment. As the legal drama surrounding young Dolph's murder continues to unfold, one major question hangs in the air. Will Yo Gotti eventually catch a case for his potential role in the conspiracy? This question depends on a complex evaluation of legal evidence, witness statements, and ongoing investigations that might still uncover new information. Based on court proceedings, testimony, and law enforcement moves as of May 2025, the possibility of Yo Gotti facing charges remains a hot topic for speculation and analysis. To gauge the likelihood of Yo Gotti potentially catching an indictment, we first need to look at the current legal situation. As it stands, Yo Gotti hasn't been formally charged or named as a suspect by the authorities in connection to Dolph's murder. One trigger man, Justin Johnson, has been convicted and sentenced to life. Another, Cornelia Smith, pleaded guilty and snitched, implicating Big Jook rather than directly pointing the finger at Yo Gotti. Hernandez Govan, alleged to be the mastermind who coordinated the hit, is still awaiting trial in July 2025 after turning down a plea deal. Beyond Smith's testimony, no direct evidence, such as financial records or communications, has been publicly disclosed to corroborate the alleged $100,000 hit or CMG's payment of legal fees. The absence of such corroborating evidence would present a significant obstacle for prosecutors considering charges against Yo Gotti, as they would need to establish a more concrete connection beyond his family and business relationship with Big Jook. The upcoming trial of Hernandez Govan in July 2025 represents a potential game changer in the case. As the alleged orchestrator who coordinated between Big Jook and the shooters, Govan might have information that could either implicate or clear Yo Gotti. If Govan decides to cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for leniency, his testimony could potentially provide new details about the planning and authorization of the hit, including any role Yo Gotti might have played. However, Govan has maintained his innocence so far, pleading not guilty and rejecting a plea deal, suggesting he might not be willing to play ball with the prosecution's narrative. The possibility of federal involvement adds another layer to the case. Music manager Whack 100 claimed on Clubhouse in October 2024 that Yo Gotti could face federal RICO charges, suggesting prosecutors might classify CMG as a gang and connect it to both Dolph's murder and previous incidents like the 2017 Charlotte shooting. He specifically referenced Smith's testimony about CMG paying legal fees as potential evidence of a broader criminal enterprise. While these claims lack official confirmation, they reflect a scenario that prosecutors could potentially pursue if they believe CMG functions as an organized criminal entity rather than just a record label. A Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, known as RICO case, would allow prosecutors to target leaders of criminal enterprises by proving a pattern of racketeering activity. Under this approach, CMG could theoretically be classified as a criminal organization, with incidents like Dolph's murder and prior shootings serving as predicate acts. However, such a case would require evidence that Yo Gotti directed or profited from criminal activities, not just that his brother or label associates were involved. Smith's testimony about CMG paying legal fees could be a starting point, but it remains circumstantial and uncorroborated by other evidence. Public and social media speculation about Yo Gotti potentially catching a case has intensified following the revelations in Johnson's trial. Posts on X and other platforms have drawn comparisons to the YSL RICO case against Young Thug, suggesting the Dolph trial might be a precursor to a larger CMG takedown. Others have made more explosive claims, including allegations that Yo Gotti orchestrated both Dolph's and Big Juke's deaths. However, these social media narratives, while reflecting public sentiment, lack legal weight without corroboration from official sources or evidence presented in court. With all the drama going on, one theory floating around online suggests that Yo Gotti fled to Texas to duck legal trouble related to Young Dolph's death. This claim came after Yo Gotti allegedly posted a video claiming that he was moving CMG's headquarters to Dallas, Texas, and fans are suspecting that it's to avoid catching a case in Memphis. Big Juke catching a body further complicates matters, as it removes a key player who might have clarified the extent of the conspiracy, leaving prosecutors relying on Govan or new evidence that hasn't yet surfaced. The historical incidents previously linked to the beef, such as the 2017 shootings, didn't result in charges against Yo Gotti, with the LAPD explicitly clearing him in the Los Angeles case. This precedent suggests that authorities have previously found insufficient evidence to charge him even when investigating incidents directly connected to the rivalry. However, several factors keep the possibility of an indictment on the table. The prosecution's emphasis on CMG during Johnson's trial and Smith's claims about legal fees suggest investigators may be exploring the label's broader activities beyond the immediate circle of defendants already charged. Hernandez-Govan's upcoming trial could potentially produce new testimony or evidence implicating Yo Gotti, especially if Govan decides to flip to avoid a life sentence. The speculation about a potential RICO case, while unconfirmed by official sources, aligns with how prosecutors have targeted music labels in other cases, such as the YSL prosecution involving Young Thug. If the feds are involved, they may be building a case on the low, gathering evidence that hasn't yet been made public. The high-profile nature of the case and the public pressure, amplified by figures like WAC 100 and social media commentary, could also push law enforcement to investigate Yo Gotti more thoroughly, particularly given the significance of Dolph's murder in Memphis. Yo Gotti himself has kept it quiet regarding the case, neither commenting publicly on Dolph's death nor addressing the allegations from the trial. This silence, while legally smart, has allowed speculation to flourish in the absence of his perspective. Gotti has continued his music career and business moves, including signing new artist Zillionaire Doe in January 2025, suggesting he's proceeding with his professional life despite the cloud of suspicion. Looking ahead, several key variables could significantly impact the likelihood of Yo Gotti facing charges. Hernandez-Govan's trial in July 2025 represents a critical juncture, as his testimony could potentially provide new information about the planning and authorization of the hit, including any role Yo Gotti might have played. Any signs of FBI or ATF involvement would suggest a potential RICO investigation, raising the stakes considerably. Financial records, communications, or additional witnesses linking Yo Gotti directly to the murder plot would also dramatically change the calculus, as would increase public and political pressure on Memphis authorities to resolve all aspects of this high-profile case. If there will be a case against Yo Gotti, it would likely focus on establishing his knowledge of or participation in the alleged conspiracy orchestrated by his brother. Prosecutors would need to show that Gotti knew about the bounty placed on Dolph and either approved it or failed to stop it despite having the juice to do so. Alternatively, they might argue that CMG operated as a criminal enterprise under Gotti's leadership, making him liable for actions taken to benefit the organization's interest even without direct involvement in planning the murder. Gotti's defense, on the flip side, would likely emphasize the lack of direct evidence tying him to the murder, the questionable credibility of witnesses like Smith, and the focus on Big Juke rather than Gotti himself in existing testimony. They could point to Gotti's public statements downplaying the beef with Dolph and his focus on building CMG as a legitimate legitimate business empire as evidence that he had moved beyond street beef to concentrate on corporate success. The legal threshold for an indictment, probable, cause to believe a crime has been committed, is lower than the standard for conviction, meaning prosecutors could potentially secure an indictment with less evidence than would be required for a guilty verdict. However, ethical prosecutors typically consider whether they can ultimately prove their case at trial before proceeding with charges, particularly in high-profile cases where the reputation of the accused and public confidence in the justice system are at stake. As the legal proceedings continue to unfold, the question of Yo Gotti's potential indictment remains open. The case exemplifies the challenges in prosecuting sophisticated criminal conspiracies, where direct evidence may be limited and witnesses may have complex motivations. It also highlights how hip-hop rivalries can escalate beyond music into real-world violence with devastating consequences, leaving the justice system to untangle the web of professional conflicts, street politics, and personal vendettas that may have contributed to Dolph's tragic death. For now, Yo Gotti remains in a legal limbo, not charged but not fully cleared, with the specter of potential indictment hanging over his career as investigators continue to probe the circumstances surrounding young Dolph's murder. The July 2025 trial of Hernandez Govan looms as the next major milestone in this ongoing saga, potentially bringing new revelations that could either strengthen or weaken the case for Gotti's involvement. Until then, the hip-hop community, legal observers, and the public can only speculate about whether the full story of Dolph's death has yet to be told and whether all those responsible will ultimately face justice. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to watch another fascinating video like this, click on one of the boxes on your screen right now.